On PM Express tonight, the power of the middle class. Lessons from the Debt Action Program. What a fight it has been for the middle class. Rarely have we seen the middle class come out blazing, all guns blazing, deploying the big guns. In fact, we've not only seen the middle class, we've seen a little bit of the upper class also all coming up. People who ordinarily are naturally not affected by a lot of the things that majority of Ghanaians go through. And so you don't hear them in an activism space. But the Debt Action Program, if there is one positive from this Debt Action Program, it is a renewed sense of activism that we have seen in the last month or so on the back of the announcement that individual bondholders have been included. Before then, it was civil society, folks who were in that space, and there was criticism that even for civil society, their voices were beginning to die out. Many of them have just fallen by the wayside, and their voices were not as loud and as active as it should be on the essential issues that affect majority of Ghanaians. And then came this blessing in disguise called the Debt Action Program, and it forced all these powerful middle class individuals out into the open, protesting, agitating, advocating, and the results are there for all to see. Today, as we speak, it is day 7 of the protest by individual pensioners, bondholders, many of them middle class individuals, a few upper class folks who have been sitting in the sun to protest. Where have you heard that in Ghana? Now, the wealthy former, I'm assuming he is, a wealthy former boss of the Securities and Exchange Commission, a former Chief Justice, immediate past, appointed by this current president, will take a seat and sit in the sun to protest with placards. Have you seen that before? People who are apolitical, and they have served this country all the time and have been quiet. And there's a point that the former Chief Justice makes. He says, my lips have been ungagged. And he's speaking. Why? Because the individual, because of the domestic tradition brought her out. And so that is what we are going to be analyzing today. The power of the middle class. And the thing I want to explore is this going to be a 9-day wonder, a flash in the pan, when after the Debt Action Program is gone and their coupons and interest are paid, they will just disappear into the wind and just go about doing their work, driving their air-conditioned V8 and just not bother about the millions of the poor, voiceless folks who have no power to challenge the authority? Is this going to be one of those 9-day wonder things? Just come in the moment because there's an interest at stake? Or can we leverage on this and make it a more permanent part of our democratic dispensation? That is a conversation we want to have tonight with my guests who are joining me on this. And I want to get you to appreciate how much they have achieved already. And the battle is not won by any stretch of the imagination, but I want to stress to you how much they've achieved in that 1 month that this has been on, that they've been advocating. Remember when they started, government told them they will only get 0% this year, 5% and an average for 2024, and then the rest of the time, 10% average. That's what they started with, right? And then, they were not included. I'm talking about the middle class, that individual bondholders group. They were not included. They were exempted. So, we left it to the workers' union, the trade unions, etc., to fight, because their bonds were included in the pension funds, right? And they fought vehemently. And as for the, trade unions, that's what they do. I mean, they were set up to fight. And so there's nothing extraordinary about that. That's, if they didn't do it, it would have been a surprise. And so no surprise there. And then came the day when the finance minister, I think there was a massive miscalculation, because maybe somebody would have thought or, calculated that for individual bondholders, unlike the unions, they are scattered all over the place. You can't find them. It will struggle to possibly come together and mount any particular challenge. And so maybe when you include them, it'll be easy to get away with it. They were fatally mistaken, because this happened, they were included. It was just on the eve of Christmas. Many of the middle class folks were chilling. I mean, Christmas time, they were possibly, flying all over the world on holiday, And by the way, Dr. Edu Ananengchi confessed that he was out of the country when this was announced. And then he read it close to the new year and he said, goodness me, I need to cut short my trip abroad and come down and fight. That's a typical middle class view there. He was out of the country. And so the Christmas time, a lot of them were out there chilling on holidays with their families, parties, etc., having fun, right? And then they woke up in the new year to realize, goodness me, my money is going to be affected. And then the fight started. It was brutal. They went out there. I mean, I did many shows here with them. Senor Hosi, by the way, Senor Hosi has been an advocate and in activism for a long time. So there was no surprise there. Martin Kpebu, advocacy has been his thing. So for them, the activism is their thing. But the thing that distinguished what was happening, they led, but the masses that followed them, who gave them the support, just was amazing. I mean, if you look at just the individual bondholders forum, there were more than 300,000 people, right? And they came out demanding exclusion of individual bondholders, exclusion of individual investors holding in collective investment schemes, commencement of discussions, negotiations. The government, the finance ministry, they didn't dare not listen. Eventually, they called them into a room and say, listen, we'll listen to you. I'm going to, get my technical guys to sit with you. The finance minister sat with them to listen, to draft that document that you saw in that technical committee meeting. I mean, and the finance minister, he came out to say, 16, oh yeah, it is voluntary. Yes, you'll repeat that. Because when you have the force of the middle class now, holding your feet to the fire, you'll begin to say stuff like this that you re-emphasize. Yes, it's voluntary, we know that. But he was forced to say it because he knew that the force was now after him. What did he achieve as a result of that? The finance minister was then forced to come back with a better offer. 10% instead of zero. 10% instead of zero, starting from this year. And instead of 15 years, he brought it to 5 years. The power of the middle class. Not only did he do that, 15% to the retirees, 5% maturity date. Power of the middle class. You don't joke with that class. The thing is, we don't get them engaged enough. Just imagine if we get them engaged on almost everything. The education sector, the schools of shame, the water situation, the hospitals that have been abandoned. Can you imagine if we get them engaged constantly for the rest of the year on these issues? Just imagine the change that you will get. They won't be getting goodies in their pockets. I'm a bondholder, and so when I talk, I'm including myself in this. You will get them to engage for the masses of the poor who have no voice of their own, right? And then we got a finance minister now coming out today. And this for me is a big win. Although, of course, there are issues about lying with government fiscal commitments. When the finance minister issues a statement after the closure of the bond exchange program, did not only say it once, he said it twice. That I will pay you when your bonds are due. I will pay you when the bonds are due. He didn't say it once, he said it twice. In one statement, he said it twice. But he added, in line with the government fiscal commitment. You see, because of this lie and the concerns that others have, they haven't relented. The pensioners are still going to protest. You still have the Martin Kpebu saying, we are still going to go there and protest for 4 days before we return to the police. That is the power of the middle class. They are not satisfied. Some say, okay, I'm going to wait until they default, and then maybe I can come and fight. They say, no, we won't wait. We are going to serve him notice that the bonds they defaulted already, they should pay, and tell us when they are going to pay, right? IBF have sent them, the minister, a letter, tell us when you are paying, right? Martin Kpebu says, well, that is good, but a step further. I'm going to protest 4 days until they pay. And the pensioner saying exempt. I want explicit exemption. Today, the Chief Justice, former Chief Justice, said, I want that explicit exemption, right? So this is how it closed in terms of the debt exchange program. The numbers look good for the finance ministry, and so they're looking into it. But it was Evans Mensah who touched on the matter. 1.3 million people, a strong group of people, and he says, if the government goes ahead with what it's doing with individual bondholders, they're attempting to wipe away the middle class, and it's dangerous. For me, I need to emphasize it's dangerous. That's the majority leader. It's dangerous to attempt to wipe out the middle class. That is a very powerful statement, and he knows what he's talking about. And so tonight, we'll talk to the individuals who have led this. Tonight, we are not going into the details about, debt exchange, exempt or exempt, stay or stay. We are talking about the bigger picture. They have achieved something here. Can they deploy this in a more sustainable, permanent manner on other issues going forward? Senor Hosi has done it on other issues already, but he didn't have the weight of 300,000 people in a group behind him when he was doing other things. Can he promise us that he will get all these groups and people following him in a more permanent, structured way on other issues in a sustained manner? What about Martin Kpebu as well? He also has his own group. I mean, they have a sizable number as well. Would they also do same? The pensioners, bondholders, would they constitute themselves into an amalgamated form of group that puts pressure on other issues? Because many have criticized, though, and said that will the former Chief Justice, will Dr. Edwin Aniemtwi, and the thousands of individual bondholders whose voices we've heard, would they have come out this way if their monies were not at risk? I think that's a legitimate question. And so that's one of the lessons we are learning from this. And so should they wait in their comfort of their V8s until this gets close to them before they act? Or should they be engaged constantly, whether it affects them directly or not? That's a question my guest will answer after the break. So stay with me. Professor Bafo Ejimendria is former UN senior government advisor, governance advisor, joins us right now on Zoom. Dr. Kwame Asante is a senior lecturer, political science department of the University of Ghana. Martin Kpebu is lawyer, convener, Individual Bondholders Association. Senor Hosi is with me in the studio. He's an Individual Bondholders Forum convener. And because he's the studio, I want to start with him on this. Senor, so first of all, explain to me how this came about. Was it spontaneous, or was it because of the selfish interest of people's money, and possibly yours as well, that were at risk, that possibly galvanized this movement? Or was it organic?
I can't define what organic in this matter would be, but for me, it was the injustice of the matter. I don't react well to bullying. I've suffered bullying in my life, so the last thing I want to try is to bully people around me. I would react very differently. More for me was the injustice of it, and also looking at the broader economic implication for a country that needs a recovery. I think that the government was really missing the plot. And also as a member of the industry in some form, because I'm a major investor in the certain corporate boards within the fund management sector, I'm very conversant with the terrain. I'm an economic financial policy analyst. So when you come and you say certain things, I can really decode them. So when the minister came and was talking about nothing lost, nothing this, nothing, I said, really? Okay, let's really get this. Let's be honest with the people. Let's get people understand and make people make informed decisions. But that's when I put my team together to start analyzing and realize that, look, we're really in a big mess. People's lives were really going to be shattered. The social implications on this was catastrophic. The economic implications was also going to be devastating. It couldn't just be made to slide, but maybe people just needed information. But I realized that no, the advocacy to really push the transaction had taken a different turn. One which was not to equip people with information, help people make informed decisions, but one which was really to oppress or suppress people into submission.
I remember very well.
And I couldn't react right to that. And I've also been very active, encouraging people to invest in Ghana. I spent time in the US, encouraging people to invest in Ghana. I speak to people, invest in Ghana. Corporate bonds, safe. Some kind of instrument, safe. We need to invest in Ghana. It's the only way we can actually turn this around. If we ourselves, our people, can't trust our economy, who will? All right, so now I have to now face the same question. So you ask that, you encourage us to do this. You encourage us to do this. Now, this is what is happening. What does it mean? And I have to only be honest and tell them that it means about 77% of your wealth is just being wiped off. And it was really, really disturbing a lot of people. One of the papers that's on the paper with the energy sector left, the ESLA bonds, I am the architect of that particular paper.
So at what point did you, I mean, the first time I saw you, I think it was a statement that you issued.
Yeah.
Both from the forum. And then I saw the conveners. At what point did you guys decide to make this into a force?
Oh, well, it took maybe...
And when you started, did you think that it would get this big?
I drink deep or drink not if I really want to get things done. And this needed a big push. It just practically took me about 2 days, together with colleague friends like David Tete, Ganesh, wherever you are, big ups. You've done great on this entire project. And then we had to pull together our friends.
So
I am personally, Franklin, yes.
Menu.
And also you have to drive right on the back of your network because you need to put people ready to put their skin in the game and get things done. Personally, I'm not exposed to the DDE. I am.
You don't have a bond?
I used to have way before. I exited my CD positions and invested more in other Ghana government papers, which are not exposed to the DDE. Not because I had an foresight, but I was taking a very rational economic bets myself. So I'm personally not exposed, but around me are many people who are exposed, who one possibly lack adequate understanding, and even when they then get understanding, don't have the voice. And I don't think government help themselves by trying to sort of sell fear. They actually woke up something else, and that's what really drove the energy. And apologies for your perspective.
By the way, I mean the camera can't take this. But when Senior started this fight, it was on this show, and he broke this table. There's a huge crack in the middle here.
But at the latest display, it was already slightly expanded.
He hit his hand on this so hard, it broke.
It was important to really sell right the energy, the passion, and also to drive the right support. I have been in the business of public advocacy for quite a while.
One Ghana movement, I think.
One Ghana movement, but I mean, as a representative of the oil sector, you do a lot of public advocacy. It's at the heart of what you do. And I don't do public, I also do policy advocacy. So I can balance both sides of both government and actual private practice. So it's a balancing act. How do you manage the same people you have to fight and drive them as partners to achieve the goals and aspirations of the people you represent? So, it always becomes a quite interesting one.
Stay with me. So the middle class...
But the fight is not over.
No, it's not. I made that point. That the fight is not over, but the evidence is that you've achieved something. I'm not bring Martin into this conversation. Martin, just like Senor, I was telling him before we started the show that for you and him, I believe you must have a certain genetic predisposition to take this fight and to want to lead the vulnerable and people without voices. But the group you were leading, and normally, Martin, you lead people who are voiceless. But the group you chose to lead this time are powerful members of the society, middle-class folks. What have you learned from this process?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Martin. Please unmute for me because
basically that middle class folks.
Oh, goodness me, I'm having a challenge with...
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
So the lesson is that middle class folks are willing to step out.
Unfortunately, we need to reconnect to Martin. Martin, we'll have to reconnect to you. Unfortunately, your line isn't great. Let's see if we can reconnect to Martin and hopefully get him a better connection via Zoom still, hopefully. But let me bring in Professor Ajimendia. Prof, I am pretty certain you would have monitored and observed what has been happening. You have a former Chief Justice who is out there protesting in the sun. You have a former Director of SEC, many prominent members of society out there protesting. Senior and many middle-class individuals who are out there. What is your assessment of what has happened so far in how the middle class have galvanized in this fight?
Well, thank you, Evans. Let me begin by really commending Senor and Martin for their leadership in this particular matter. I've been watching them at a distance. I don't think Senor and I have met face to face, but of course, I follow him very, very closely. One of the most articulate civil society actors that we have today. So I really personally admire them. Having said that, I think your point about the middle class is a little bit nebulous because we haven't really defined what the middle class is. If you are talking to me and citing a former Chief Justice and so many prominent individuals, most of them retirees, I don't think by definition these individuals belong to the middle class. They don't, because middle class or classes of society are normally defined by income, wealth, and as well as professions. So talking about those who have been very actively engaged, I think Senor and Martin certainly as activists do belong to that class. But when it comes to those who go to the ministry to sit on their chairs, to protest and all, I think it's not clear to me that they belong to that. Nonetheless,
where will you put them, though? I'm curious. Where will you put that group?
Well, you see, a Chief Justice of any country should belong to the upper class.
Upper class, okay.
Upper class. Because I said you can define classes by wealth as well as income. Income and...
profession. The profession and then the status in society.
And then at times also social status may come to add to that, you see. So the Chief Justice can belong there.
But I must add to that, though, that pensioners group is smaller in comparison to what Senor and Co represented. The 300,
Correct.
how many, what was the number?
I don't know, maybe
300,000 or so, plus Martin's group.
Precisely.
That group of people are mostly like Senor and myself.
Well, we have pensioners, we have everybody. We cut across the entire spectrum. At IBF, we cut across the entire spectrum.
Yes, Prof.
Yeah, so that's good for our viewers and listeners to understand that the term middle class stands for something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think when Senor and Martin started this movement, if I should characterize it as such, I found it very interesting because these are two individuals whose voices have been raised in defense of the voiceless, generally speaking, who have been very vocal on the issue of governance and how our affairs are managed. I didn't know that he was, or they were privately, they did announce that they were going to mobilize people who hold the bonds. And I think the number of those who responded to their call are those who certainly have invested in the government bonds.
Yeah.
All right. And that's where perhaps your point about the middle class comes in. Now it's clear that most of our young people, the middle class, the new professionals, medium income earners, have trusted the government by putting their money in the banks because they know this is perhaps the safest way to invest in your future. So I'm very impressed by that fact that young people and others, as we know, did invest. And they invested because they trusted government. And that is why it's been so painful that with that trust and knowing too well what we call social capital, in this case, economic capital, the term trust is a serious capital when government is engaging citizens. Once you break that trust, then you are on to something else. A quick example. You recall that during the so-called revolutionary days by Jerry Rawlings, they collected people's money. The highest denomination or domination at the time was what, 50, I think it was 50 cedis. They collected all those monies, promising that they will be paid back. They never did. And that affected the banking system. People refused to put their monies in the banks. It was not until the first NPP administration under President Kufuor that gradually confidence was built, especially when the Nigerian banks were invited into our banking system. They flooded the banking system, then gradually people started trusting the banks again. So for me, what was disturbing was government breaching this basic trust that it has established with its own people. And what is worse for me again is the fact that you're targeting people who have come to the end of their professional lives in their 60s, 70s, 80s, whose only means of sustenance could be their investment. Because, you put it there, maybe every month or every 3 months, you go get some 4,000 to pay your bills. And everything in the country is going skyrocketing. So that, for me, was the most painful thing. And that's why listening to Senor, I admire him because, of course, clearly he saw the injustice in that particular policy decision by government. And the Chief Justice, former Chief Justice, deciding to join the picketers, that even made it worse, And I think somebody who is known generally to be a sympathizer of the sitting government and come in public to say, look, I'm not gagged anymore, and I'm going to speak my mind, and using words that ordinarily you wouldn't expect. Even in public, I will be a little bit more careful using certain words the former Chief Justice used. It tells you the height of frustration that this particular decision of government has brought to the people of Ghana.
But Prof, you just touched on something that I want to bounce it off Dr. Asante Doc. Normally, you will not see the former Chief Justice, who, of course, Prof is right, belongs to the upper class, and many middle class folks who, traditionally, I mean, they are not engaged as much, right? Get this vociferous, this vocal about issues, right? When you watch what is now playing out, how much credit are you giving that middle class, the bulk of the middle class? And now we are seeing that upper class also joining this particular fight, which I must argue, it's pretty rare in our political democratic dispensation.
Yeah, for me, if you look at how far we have come in terms of our political, trajectory, you realize that even starting from pre-independence, you saw middle class action towards a fight against, colonial rule.
Yeah.
And later, upper class people, big people join, and we saw the end. The dismantle colonial rule, establish a government that they call their own. We saw post-independent government, especially during Acheampong era. You saw a lot of middle class rose up against that military dictatorship. Association of Registered Professional Bodies, Ghana Bar Association, they fought the government head on. And that led to, the demise of the government. Later, when Rawlings came in with the, AFRC handed over to PMP and then back to PNDC, you saw how the group also re-emerged and then fought. You saw the likes of, Kwame Safuedu. You saw the likes of, Edubuahing, his famous speech on the culture of silence. Others joined. That is what we call the elite consensus. That road really broke the neck of that dictatorship. And we established a political system that we continue from there up to date. So you realize that over the years, the middle class has been one of the critical actors within our political space. And that when things get worse, you start seeing them standing up.
But that's what I want to interrogate. Why is it that they wait for things to get worse before they jump in? Isn't that part of our problem?
It's not that it get worse before they come in. You see, little position coming up. Once a while, they throw in something. Once a while, we have seen that. Particularly when you look at how this economy has been mismanaged.
Yeah.
People have started talking. You started hearing voices, Kwame Pienim and co, talking about the
Professor
need
Bokpeng,
to be careful.
Yes.
Open, and then look at the universities. You see how scholars and all over the world, the change that we have seen in the political system are always driven by middle class, political elites, and then, scholars. Once they begin to, travel that journey, you see a whole lot of people are pulled along. Because remember the vulnerable, the needy, and all that. Who speaks for them? They are the people who speak. When they begin to speak, they galvanize all manner of support. So when the government, took that route, and then we started experiencing problems with regard to what the loans that it had been accumulated, they were warning the government. We talk about issue of corruption, they were warning and all that. Then you started seeing this. Remember, cast your mind back, Occupy Ghana and all that. The groups were building up because they've seen that there has been a change within the way things ought to be managed. So gradually. But this was the last nail in the coffin of the government. And quickly, you saw how they were able to galvanize support. Senior Hosi and his friend.
But again, let me challenge you on that. They only got involved. I mean, you're right. I mean, the academics were raising this. The economists were raising. They're warning about the impending, economic challenges, etc. But the government will not listen to that because they didn't have the critical mass of powerful voices behind it, like we see in thousands and thousands of middle-class people who are influenced, who can call the finance minister and talk to him, etc. They didn't have that. So government didn't listen. It's only when their personal funds, monies, their pockets were directly hit or threatened that this beast seemed to just, break chains and go out there in the public and get the government to start sitting and listening.
Obviously, nobody will sit down for his investment to be thrown away. Nobody will do that. But all these things reach a crescendo, all right? They were boiling up gradually. Now, even see within the MPP, those who really want to contest for the election, they are now coming up and saying that there was something wrong with the system, there's something wrong that we need to fix here and there. They are telling you, even from within the MPP, there are some who are not, happy about what is going on within the parties. So that is how change starts in various political systems. So I am not surprised that you see them. But what really triggered the whole process is that the investment were being attacked. Their very livelihood. These are people who have finished their national service, if I may call it that way. And then they were now, relaxing and then dealing with a life after pension and all that. Obviously, once you tamper with their means of livelihood, they will come at you.
But that's the point. And I'll put that question to all of you. And Senor, you made the point, retorted, that this country's biggest problem is the middle class. Explain.
It's the docile nature and a very selfish orientation of that elite class. Maybe middle class, maybe you're wrong.
Okay, so elite class.
Let me call it the elite class. I mean, I think we have a selfishness problem. A bit of it is allowed, but I think that we don't have a strong sense of country as we pretend to have. I am comfortable when we have to step out. The next thing everybody's asking is, hey, what happened to my business? In case these people come for me, my brother, this one, you less, I'm not the one who solves Ghana's problems. But when we carry on this way, what kind of life are we living for the generations? Look at the act of government in this thing. There's a strong case for it to rather show leadership and sacrifice its own comfort by taking fiscal adjustments. We didn't see our politicians do that. Then our fathers, when this crisis came, they will actually have a lot more access to network, a lot more access to experience, who could have brought it to help deal with this national catastrophe. We also saw them rather say that they were in to just take care of their own self. We are pensioners. We are the only people you should take care of at this point, since you are doing this. And that was what happened. Who is really thinking about the generation after? Our parents forgot about us and they forgot about their children and were thinking about themselves. Our governments forgot about the people who put them there and were just thinking about their own personal comfort. It's the same thing that happens every time. Like you were saying offline with some of the friends there. They said they only go because the thing hits them. Ghana hits all of us every day.
That's true.
That's what we all forget. When you buy hacks and there's a tax in there, you are investing in making this country better for the children that come after you.
So if you don't get interested in the space of policy, you don't get interested in how governance is run, and you're just thinking of the fact that you can buy your own fuel and not think about the hunger of the person next door, what country are you going to live in? What country will our children grow in? We easily forget these things. We easily do. My mom can call me and be worried. My family members can call me and be worried. And it's true. They have a case. But if we all keep acting this way, where will we go? I'm very clear that when this DDE is done, my business interests will suffer. I'm clear. But it's the risk that I have to sign off with my wife. All right? And we all have to sacrifice something. People gave up their lives. Corporal Atipo, Adete Sowa, people did something, but Ghanaians, we don't really want to give much. The politics should just come and pass. And I really worry.
Have you found it difficult?
Because all of us are just thinking right now, in all honesty, how we can get some money in this elite class, take our children to the US.
Yeah.
When we want to give birth to our children, we are not giving birth to our children in Ghana anymore when we can afford it. We want to go and give birth to them in the US.
Become citizens.
All these politicians sitting there, go and check how many of them take their children to the free SHS that they are talking about. Look at all of us who sit around them, and when they are pregnant, all of us want to go and give birth to our children in America. So you are getting people who are ruling us, who are giving birth to Americans. We are having an elite class who want to be the one defining things in this country, benefiting for the largest, but when they get the chance, they want to give birth to Americans, not Ghanaians. I mean, it's a very sorry situation. And this DDE has exposed so many social and cultural cracks, from the conduct of leaders to the conduct of parents, and that too of children. Ghana sometimes can only be described as one big orphan. That's why I say everybody comes here and talks about Ghana as if it's a cake. Everybody take your piece and go.
I mean, so
there are a number of people who have told me that, look, Jale, it's not you are going to get something and go.
I see.
How?
I mean, but so I'm curious. But you got thousands of people to join after your initial thing.
It's because their money is inside, not because they are thinking about Ghana. In most cases, some people just really love the passion, and I can single out people like Kobna Atabedu, you know, Bernard Avle. I mean, people who didn't have Kojo Akoto, who didn't have their money inside, but they are passionate about the matter.
Yeah.
All right, you know, and those things give you a reason to hope that things can get better. But for majority of the people, it is let me protect my skin. But Ghana is also our skin. All of us, our skin together makes the skin Ghana. We can't lose sight of that. And we have to build structures and systems that makes it sustainable for our own selves and generations after us. Like it is often said, the land that we live on doesn't belong to us. It is lent to us. It's a loan. It's borrowed land. And we must justify how we manage it when the owners really come. The owners are the generation after us. Which Ghana are we actually creating?
And I'll come to that point about, so will this become a flash in the pan or something that will be sustained because of the challenges that Senor has just indicated? But thankfully, Martin is back on a better line. Hello, Martin.
Yeah, hello, Evans.
I can hear you loud and clear. Share with me your own experience on this journey. You've been one of the conveners.
Yeah, so Evans, yes, what we can say, or let me say, what I can say is that the middle class people are in this fight because obviously their money is affected. And you see, that's what I mentioned earlier before the line got bad. And that's the same thing Senor has been explaining. Yes, and it's natural that once their pockets are hit, they would want to fight back. But let's also clarify, there are a lot of lower class people, lower income people that have the bonds. Remember, some of the bonds, 500, 1,000. So some of the people, their total holdings are 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, etc. So low income people also form quite a chunk, especially in the collective investment schemes. Mm-hmm. So the lesson is that when people's pockets are hit, they will fight back and fight hard. You say, right. That's different from a situation where people complain about the general economic downturn or malaise, right? This time, people people's pockets are hit more directly. Their savings, their entire life savings, etc., are going down the drain. And so, as we say, the first human instinct come and fight. And it is that, you see, at first, people didn't care too much that Mr. Furiata made so much money, he and the president, from data bank. But now that people's savings are going, they've learned that lesson, and they are willing to pursue it to its logical conclusion. How data bank has made money in this whole reckless borrowing exercise.
But Martin, there's a question. There's a question there, Martin. Martin, there's a question there. Now we are seeing the results of their activism. Should they, though, have waited till it got personal to their own funds before they got it? Because some will argue that if this activism had been there, as Senor has started, and they were engaged from the very moment the likes of, Professor Bokwe and co started warning 2 years, 3 years ago that, we're approaching danger. If all these thousands of people you lead and, and Senor leads got engaged at that time, possibly they would have forced the government to listen a bit more and would possibly not have been where now at the point where their own funds are threatened.
Absolutely, Evans. You are right. No question about that. So it means that in the process, people have had a rude political awakening. And he says it's provided a fine opportunity for us to now evaluate our participation in our own governance. Right? Yeah. So having learned the lesson the hard way, I foresee that moving forward, our society won't be the same because now people are feeling it directly. Evans, can you imagine for all the bondholders who were due to be paid last Monday, 6th February, and who, as we speak now, have not received payment and don't know when they'll receive payment? You can imagine. So the pain, the hunger, the anxieties, and everything they are feeling is going to feed into how we hold governments accountable going into the future. Yes, because Evans, you've seen how even Chief Justice Sofia Kufu had to come out. You see, last Thursday and then today, Tuesday, 14 February. You see how she had to come out. And yesterday, Professor Osam, Pro-Vice Chancellor, also came out. So these are very good signs that our society is changing.
Yeah, I mean, so you have a lot of faith that this is a beginning of something. Let me bring Professor Jimendria into the Prof. Do you share Martin's confidence that this is the beginning of something bigger in terms of citizen engagement? Not just any kind of citizen. This is the citizen with influence, the elite class, as Senor says it. That this group, using this as sort of the turning point, will become consistently engaged, not only when their monies are involved, but when the poor folks at Agbogboloshi, are struggling to take their kids to school and they're sitting under trees, and they don't have desks, they're sitting on the floor. This group will fight for them also. You believe this is a turning point?
Well, I have to be a little bit cautious in endorsing Martin's point. Because, first of all, it's been established that this current movement was triggered more or less by some self-interested issues that the bondholders have. They have self-interest in the whole matter. And I think Senor used the term selfishness.
Yeah.
That's what really triggered this.
Yeah.
By a positive one, by the way. I'm not so sure if the issue is different, an issue that doesn't really interest the middle class, you're going to succeed in getting them to follow our good friends, Martin and Sen. So I'm a little bit cautious about that.
But isn't that the tragedy of this?
It is. In fact, it is a tragedy. Look, if you look in our recent history. And I think Occupy Ghana has been mentioned. You remember Occupy Ghana?
Yes.
Very vibrant organization in those days. Today, where is I mean, I see them throwing up statements here and
Yeah,
there.
they issued one today, by the way, but it's...
Yes, they do issue statements, but the vibrancy that we saw is no longer there. Then, of course, don't forget that in all this, there have been think tanks managed by the middle class that have been working for the past 2 decades or more. Okay? Imani, CDD Ghana, IDEG, and others is part of the movement. But their approach is not activism the way that I think Senor and Martin has been demonstrating. But nonetheless, it's part of it. So you saw the Fix the Country movement that emerged.
Yeah.
Today, it's a little bit quiet.
No, it's not quiet. It's dead.
Well, that's your word, but
it is dead. I'm not sure any of them can come and argue that it's not. It's dead.
Okay, it's dead. So you ask yourself then, what really can trigger a mass-based movement to continuously check government in its policies and others? And I think I share the passion of Senor describing how the whole country, more or less, not a segment, almost the whole country, there's a certain amnesia when it comes to these matters. And I don't know whether, and I don't want to use the issue of poverty because it's not. Poverty is a material thing. But if the poverty of the mind, then it's more serious, okay? But I think I can be fairly confident that if our friends can get others to join them and use the current mobilization as a basis of building a larger group, a more resilient group, then we can begin to see what a friend of mine recently said in a conversation with me, the rapture that should occur for things to open up. Also, I should say that most of us believe that our system is broken. The system is both political system and the economic system. They are broken. And what we can at least start to do is seriously consider the revision of the Constitution, the reforms, people might say the constitutional review. Because most of the political challenges we are having today, the fact that one person can make a decision and is binding on 30 million people, decision that was taken without much consultation, is the result of the political system that we have in place.
And the DDE, the Dead Action Program, is a classic example of that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You see, so I am also very anxious about how we can use this mobilization to really galvanize the people to get the political elite who have been invested with power by the Constitution to initiate constitutional reform.
I mean, Prof, hold on. Let me ask Martin that because of time. Martin, so I said Martin, Senor. So that's his expectation, and that's my question to you also.
I think you really should have let Prof land. It was onto something.
No, but because of time, because I need to answer his question because I think he's asking a question. How do you transform what you started into one that delivers on his expectations beyond the Dead Action Program? And very briefly, will this group die, IBF? Will it die after this? Or is this going to transform into one that fights for the child in Bunkuru Yoyo who is sitting on the bare floor and has no roof and is sitting under a tree posters?
The driving thing that got people together had very little to do for most of the people, I believe. I have to be fair. I've not spoken to all the 300,000, but I can only assume. Has more to do with their immediate economic interest. It's not about their broader policy interest.
But how do you transform it?
It's leadership that can do it.
Have you guys thought about it?
I mean, for now, I don't think that we are the business.
Not even there.
No. Because the foremost thing here, we took a mandate from people, we have to deliver that mandate.
Okay.
That mandate is to secure and optimize their economic interests as far as this, and also restore confidence in our financial system from our own Ghanaian.
So when that is achieved?
Yeah, so properly, IBF is going to be a formal entity, registered properly as a company limited by guarantee, and to have its members proper governance structures to supervise this particular process for a period as its promoters would define. It's not one defined or set up for what you're looking for. Advocacy, policy activism for us to build a better Ghana. Maybe out of this, you may find a lot of individuals with the right passion and commitment. Look, one of the signs that tells you that Ghanaians are not really is that you find all our major civil society organizations being funded by foreign financing.
Yeah, nobody locally wants to fund it.
How many of us sitting here, you won't read the policy? Yeah. You want Franklin Kujo to go and read the policy and come, and then you are arguing with him that is collecting money from George Soros. You must be smoking something very ugly. We don't want to put our money where our mouth wants to be. All the people who call you guys on the radio, ask them. Even the political parties, even the politicians who are supposed to be serving the people, when somebody wants to serve you, he has to pay the people to come and serve them. Look at the construct of an economy, of a governance system, of a people that we have become. We are not the kind of people ready for this, but we must change the orientation. And I think that's significantly driven by the kind of frame that delivers the leadership. And that's where Prof is going. About the need for us to get a critical mass to drive a certain change in our governance system, our constitution, to deliver it. Yeah, 300,000 people who are for now. Look, I'm telling you, 300,000 people, and we'll talk about even the funding of the activities in there, where we have to pay lawyers to give opinions.
Yeah. But we are contributing.
I'm telling you, you have not even got possibly 100 or 200 people to even make a contribution.
Oh, really?
But that is standard Ghana. You don't know.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, this business or this kind of activity, everybody wants to benefit from the system. But very few people want to give contribute for the system to work. Very few people. The same Ghanaians that sit here and are talking, we are the same people looking for a connection at the port.
Yeah. I mean, but so you're saying your verdict on this is that this will possibly end, this movement will end with the DDE?
No, I'm saying that it may, but
most likely
that may be like a 60% or 70%
likelihood.
But there's a growing Ghanaian. And that growing Ghanaian may not even be as educated as you and me, or as exposed as you and me. They can't tolerate this nonsense.
Okay.
And one day you'll be driving in your car at the traffic light, and they'll tell you to get down. You have driven some, it's okay. Your car, it's time for them to do. Because they also have a right to a meaningful life. And when that thing happens, people will start thinking. So those of you who are in that elite class, it's better you wake up and start thinking of how we build really a better Ghana.
Yeah, I mean,
and invest your money, invest your time, and stop hiding your face. A lot of big men are hiding their faces.
Yeah, even in this one.
And they have so much voices.
Yeah.
And when they have to show up, they say they just take off us and forget our children.
There are many powerful people who send me messages that, like, Charlie, thanks to them for my seat.
Thank yourself.
By the way, my producer say I should end, but Dr. Asante, 30 seconds, you heard the thing. What is your hope going forward? Very briefly for me, Doc. Hello, Dr. Asante.
Evans, he's gone, so I take the 30 seconds.
Yeah, please take it, yes.
Yeah, so Evans, on our tech platforms, some of our members have already indicated that when this DDEP is done, they want to stay together as a pressure group. Yes, they want to stay together as a pressure group to help counter. So we are going there.
Okay, that's good. Asante? Okay, it's not on. Okay, well, at least we have one. I mean, but listen, we'll see. Maybe 300,000. Martin and Co. We'll see. And Prof laid it out brilliantly. Prof, always grateful hearing from you on this about the expectations on the back of what is happening right now. Senor, I'm grateful. I'm not going to send you a bill for this. It's just fine.
Let's have one more.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, man.